Get the coolest mesh online at mesh.alfred.vip.
Hello everybody, I'm Alfred and you're listening to Alfred's daily Q&A live stream podcast. The former president of Nigeria, Buhari, is dead. Now I have a number of songs dissing Buhari that, they are not on streaming platforms. I removed many of my songs from streaming platforms and I just left certain songs on streaming platforms, and I'll explain why I did that later. But the songs that I have, and that's the thing, I've made so many songs that most of the names of the songs that I've made, I can't even recall them off the top of my head, as well as, their lyrics. When it comes to lyrics, I don't know the lyrics of most of my songs live, as in if I'm to perform them. I don't memorize the lyrics. It's not like I can't, it's just that I don't put the effort into doing it, especially since I create so many songs so often and so quickly. That is just something that has always been. But that being said, those songs are on the platform. I'd like to talk about Buhari's legacy, and specifically what happens when a tyrant dies. Should you go online and gloat and all of that? We shouldn't do that because we are Christians and because we want to have a decorum of sophistication and class. So we won't just go and start bashing and spitting on people's name when they are dead. However, what we are not going to do is we are not going to celebrate them or let things fly when people are like trying to paint them as saints and as good people, as they are past, they did good works and all of that. Because if we do not learn from history, we are going to repeat the mistakes that brought us to locations in the present that we do not like. We can't praise Buhari and we can't allow the praise of Buhari. Buhari single-handedly brought so much damage and misery to Nigerians. He's responsible for millions of deaths and displaced people in Nigeria. Buhari funded and helped Boko Haram. Without government officials like Buhari, Boko Haram would not have had the support that it had. When you look at the terrorism in the north, it's easily controllable. Have you asked yourself, why is it that the true wealthy people and powerful people in Nigeria are not threatened by Boko Haram? They never get attacked. It is only small people, traditional leaders who have titles but no money. Those are the ones that are getting kidnapped. Traditional leaders that do not have a cent, but they have title. Those are the ones that are getting kidnapped. The people that are wealthy and have true power don't have anything to worry about in Nigeria. Somebody once told me many years ago, but not that long ago, but it has been somewhere like I think not up to 10 years ago, but it's close to, it's crossing over that. The person told me, because I went to the market to buy something. This was a part of the market where they were selling computers and all of that. And I wanted to buy a camera. This was way back when people were still buying cameras and, cell phones were not dominant everywhere, and cell phones with cameras were not dominant everywhere. So I wanted to buy a standalone camera. I believe it was either that or it was around that period, because I remember now clearly there was a touch screen I wanted to buy on that day that I think I bought from the guy, a second-hand touch screen. This was when there was no touch screen, laptops were not everywhere. It was rare. It was one of the first touchscreen laptops in Nigeria, but it was second-hand. I bought it from him that day, and I was complaining about Nigeria and this is this, that is that, that is that, and I was saying Nigeria is such a bad, it's so difficult in Nigeria and all of that. And this was in Garrison, Port Harcourt. For those of you who are familiar with Port Harcourt, this was in Garrison, Port Harcourt. The guy looked at me and said, Nigeria is only a bad place to be if you don't have money. When he told me about that, I was like, wow. I've never heard it like that before. Nigeria is actually a great place to be if you have money. And when I say if you have money, I don't mean you have a car, you have a job, or you work at a bank. No, I'm not talking about that kind of money. I'm talking about money. I'm talking about when you own estates. Nigeria is a great place to be. I'm talking about that kind of money where you own private jets. Nigeria is the home of people who own the largest number of private jets, the largest collection of private jets. There are airports in Nigeria that you do not know about. Airports that are just for the rich. These are not airports for everybody. There are airports in Nigeria you do not know about. There is a life in Nigeria that you can live that is paradise. But it's only accessible to the super rich. It's not for everybody. So, Nigeria is a great place to live when you have money. And I'm talking a lot of money. It's only in Nigeria that somebody who is super wealthy can just come and shoot anybody and pay the police to do whatever they want. So you can't do that in other countries. You can't just buy the media and do whatever you want in other countries. But in Nigeria, if you have money, you can get away with anything. And it goes back to what I'm saying. How many people are all these terrorists and Boko Haram disturbing that have real money? Boko Haram will never disturb Dangote. They will never disturb that class. And there are people who are richer than Dangote in Nigeria that you will not know. You have to understand something about old Nigerian money. Old Nigerian money is not loud. As a matter of fact, it's not in the nature of Nigerians to traditionally show their wealth. Those who show their wealth and want to tell people they are rich are new money. Those are people who just made money yesterday. It's often people who grew up in poverty, grew up in lack. Now they want to show people that they have something. Those who grew up in wealth don't have anything to prove. They have a different principle and a different upbringing. Right from time their parents told them don't talk about money. There are people who have the real money. When you look around you in Nigeria, understand that everything you are seeing is making money for somebody else. Everything you are seeing is owned by somebody else. When you walk past a street, know that that whole street is owned by somebody. There are people who own the houses. Sometimes it's the same bank that owns all the houses. Sometimes it's the same bank that owns all the businesses. So when you look around you, there's a lot of money in Nigeria, but people don't know how to collect it and how to tap into it. But there's billions of naira and dollar and pounds zipping past you in Nigeria. But people don't understand. A lot of Nigerians don't understand, even on the civil aspect, the politics of Nigeria, the truth about the politics of Nigeria. When you begin to understand it, you understand why things are the way they are and why it will not change. And many Nigerians do not understand the truth about the economics of Nigeria. The truth about Nigeria is that there's a lot of money in Nigeria. A lot of the resources, all the oil in Nigeria, where is it going? Where is the money going? There's a lot of money being generated. The thing about Nigeria is that it's a problem where, number one, a lot of people are ignorant. Even those who, no matter how much you go to school, they don't teach you all these things in school. A lot of people are ignorant about the Nigerian structure and understand that Nigerian business is different from American business. You can learn, when you read business administration from a textbook, you are learning from the American perspective, how things work in America, how things work in Canada, how things work in the first world. It's different in a third world country. There is a reason why if you bring a white man who is very successful in America, on Wall Street, or perhaps in London, in the business world, he's very successful, bring him to Nigeria and let him just work. Him and his white people, don't employ Nigerians. Let them run a business. They will fail. They will fail immediately. Because the Nigerian marketplace is completely different. Economics in Nigeria is completely different. Economics in Africa as a whole is completely different. So when you understand how the economics of Nigeria works, for example, if you're a businessman in Nigeria that is transporting, you have to factor in the amount of money you are going to give your employees is going to give as bribe to police when they are traveling and taking goods from point A to point B. And factoring that in logistics, that is never going to be possible in an American business system. I was one time reading a balance sheet of Dangote's company, Dangote Cement, because I like to read balance sheets before I know if I can invest. That was one thing when I was reading Buffettology books about Warren Buffett, the book on Warren Buffett, Buffettology 2 by Nancy Warren. I believe I have the book somewhere here. They talked about the importance of studying the companies and reading the balance sheet and what to look for. And one of the things I saw in Dangote Cement balance sheets, this is a balance sheet of a company. They wrote that the amount of money, so and so million spent on book launching of shift so and so. Why is that on a business balance sheet? What concerns that? That is a donation. Dangote donated millions to the book launching of a chief. Why is that on a balance sheet? What business does that have to do? Where was the cement? The balance sheet should have to do with, you're looking at what's the things that were bought by the company to make the cement, and then when the cement was made, where they sold, and those who they sold to on credit, and those who paid in time, and all of that. So that is what the kind of information is to see on a balance sheet. Why is a donation on a balance sheet? It is because that is part of the Nigerian business structure. In Nigeria, for you to advance in business, you have to donate money to certain people. That is just one thing. So there are so many things about the African and the Nigerian business structure that is completely different from the American business structure. So the fact that somebody can do business successfully in a first world nation doesn't mean you know how to do business in Nigeria. You can read all the books. All the books you are reading is not a book that is telling you about the Nigerian business structure. All the business books, when you read a business book, your business administration, your business management, all it's telling you is how to run a business if you were in America, not if you are in Nigeria. The Nigerian business structure is different. That is why Dangote will make a lot of money. I was hearing people complain. There are people who say things like, the government helps Dangote to make money. That if anybody was favored by the government, that they too will become billionaires. That there's nothing special about Dangote. No, Dangote understands and studied Nigeria. Let me explain something to you. That kind of comment that it is the government that made Dangote rich. You must be careful. You mean to tell me that the government officials cannot make their own relatives rich? Don't you think that they will prefer to make their own relatives rich? Don't you think that they will prefer to make themselves rich? Why would they pick somebody and then say, you Dangote, let me make you rich. Let me be giving you all the contracts and everything. No, Dangote understands and studies Nigeria, and he positions himself in certain advantageous positions. Let me put it this way. Nigeria is a developing economy. Back in the day when I was much younger, in the days of Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo and, especially the early Super NES, there was what we call cheats in video game. Cheats were basically bugs in the gaming programming of a video game that will enable you to do things that the programmer missed. So there are mistakes that were made in the programming that many people do not know. Like, for example, in Streets of Rage, if you are playing the Streets of Rage on Sega, if you put your hand down on the tube button and just leave it there, you will finish the game. You will do a particular move. If you are using, there's a giant character, a big character, you will do it and breeze through the game. You kill all the characters and finish the game. That was not intended to be. They didn't want it, but it's a cheat because it was a bug in the system. In the same way, Nigeria is not well built. So there are cheats in Nigeria. There are cheat codes in Nigeria. There are ways around certain things because there's a lot of loopholes in Nigeria. So you can use those loopholes to get rich. It's through using loopholes that what happened to Fubara happened, and Wike legally did to Fubara what Wike did to Fubara legally. It's through a loophole. That should not be possible. It's not possible for somebody to be a godfather on the level that somebody, the person you appoint betrays you. Then you are able to use your godfather influence to remove that person and put another person. It should not be possible. Is not possible in a democracy. But when there are loopholes, then you can see legal ways to do it. It's through all these legal loopholes somebody can kill somebody and get away with it. By using certain technicalities and all of that. Nigeria has a lot of financial loopholes in the business structure. So that is one thing that somewhere like Dangote looks at. For example, for a country like Nigeria to be wealthy, a lot of it depends on manufacturing in-house. Nigeria cannot depend on importing. A lot of businessmen focused on importing. Dangote went to manufacturing. The biggest blessing of Dangote is going into manufacturing. Dangote used to import cement from Lafarge. It was later, there was a situation that he wanted to import. He talked about he wanted to partner with them, and really help them to import. But they disagreed with the percentage splits. That was when he first started and said, let me start making my own cement, because he looked at the market. Then when he saw it was good, he was like, this manufacturing thing. Then he started breaking off from the cement to Dangote sugar, Dangote this, that. And then he saw the big world of manufacturing. For a country to be able, especially with Nigeria that has all the resources, do you know that everything that is required to make cement is already in the north, it's already in Nigeria. The resources, the natural resources, the people, everything is already in Nigeria. So why do we bother to import? So Dangote saw that, and he saw also it's a developing country. There are a lot of people that still need to build. There's a lot of building that needs to be done. So there's opportunity for cement. Look at the businesses that Dangote targets. He targets things where there are established markets, that there are already millions of people. And he looks to the future of where is the law going to be tomorrow. The law has to keep embargoes on importing cement in the future, and that is why he jumped into manufacturing cement. The law had to put embargoes on, like Nigeria, we have sugar cane. Why are we importing sugar? If we have the sugar cane, we can create a sugar processing plant, and that is what Dangote did. He didn't go into, let me just be going and be selling sugar or brand sugar. Dangote sugar is making a lot of money by selling to businesses. A lot of the stuff you buy in Nigeria, the biscuits and all of that, they get their sugar from Dangote for a cheap price. So he has escaped embargoes that will increase prices. So by Dangote doing something like that, that is how he looked to the future and moved ahead. I know the law is going to move in this direction, so let me invest here. That is how Dangote did, and he helped. He also knew that, as time goes on, Nigeria and politicians will open themselves up to the business community. So Dangote puts himself in a position where he tries to be neutral and not outwardly support a politician, yet behind the scenes he supports politicians and gives money. So that game of being in a favorable position with politicians, but making sure that no matter which side wins, you are in a favorable position with that politician. That is the game Dangote plays. Dangote will not outwardly come out and support a politician and be pro any politician, but behind the scenes, he's there. And no matter what side, he's quote unquote so-called neutral. So if the enemy, it doesn't matter, the enemy of this politician wins, Dangote is there. He's maintaining a rapport. I'm just a businessman. He's maintaining a relationship that favors his business with everybody. That is part of the Nigerian business structure. That is not in the American business structure per se. At least not in all fields. So you can look at that situation. It may be part of that, an element of that may be part of the American business structure, like when it comes to getting in a industry that needs grants, like if you are doing something like Elon Musk is doing with space travel or going into uncharted territory or things that are setting investment heavy in tech, you may need friendship with governments. So there's that element, but it's not strong in America. But it is very important in Nigeria for you to be friends, with the politicians and with powerful people and their sons. And that is the reason for going to parties. Many people don't understand going to parties. When people go to rich cocktail parties, it's to develop relationship with rich and powerful people. It is not like, hey, I'm going to party. Even though you have to be sociable and likable at those parties, the goal is for you to build relationships with other rich people. It is poor people that go to nightclub to party. It is poor people that go to nightclub to look for somebody to sleep with them. They are looking for somebody to sleep with, so they go to club. That is partying for poor people. But when rich people party and businessmen party, they party with a purpose. They go to a cocktail party where they know that so and so powerful person is there, so and so rich person is there. They may not talk business, but they know they want to open that channel of communication. They want to build a relationship with that person. They want to open that dialogue with that person. That is why they are going to the party. When all certain events, book launchings and all of that, that is what it's for. It is stupid people who are just doing it to be socialites. But the wise people are using it there. And you see, when you are thinking different, you will meet different people. For example, if you are doing it to be a socialite, you'll be going to those places to meet famous people. But when you are doing it for connections, you are going to those places, and even though there are famous people there and you may holler at them, those are not your targets. Your target is a rich person that owns this and that people may not know. A lot of the wealthy people in Nigeria walk on the streets. The people that are wealthier than the Davidos and the people that have fame, there are even people that are wealthier than Dangote. All the oil money, where is it going to? So forging relationships with these people is part of the Nigerian business structure. And funding. Imagine the unlimited amount of funding. Imagine, who would you rather be? Will you be somebody? Would you like to be somebody? Who, for example, before you start a business, you have to save millions of dollars or millions of naira, or you have to work at a job. That is your own life. Your life is planned that you have to work a 9 to 5 for someone else. Then maybe by the age of 30 or 40, you would have saved enough money to start your own business. Look at how your life is spending a lot of time for you to get to somewhere. But somebody else's business structure is such that all he has to do is call the bank and say, I need $1 billion, and the bank gives it to him. Why? How do you position yourself that way? It is because you have to understand that a lot of wealthy people don't use their own money. It's called using other people's money. If you are depending on using your own money or using the money that you earned to get rich, you are in problem. It will take a lot of time. Look at the hedge fund managers. They are not using their own money. Look at the Lekki Gardens, and all these real estate companies. They are not using their own money. They get funded by banks behind them, and they get money from the people. Oh, buy this, buy into this, buy real estate here, buy real estate here. And it is your money there. It's just like, for example, the logic of you may not be able to buy a private jet. Not everybody in this world can buy a private jet, but everybody in this world can sell a private jet. Let me say that again. Not everybody in this world can buy a private jet, but everybody in this world can sell a private jet. What does that mean? All it means is, all you need is to know where private jets are being manufactured and know who has the money to buy. That is all you need. Information. Where can I buy a private jet and who can I sell it to? Now you are a seller of private jets, but you cannot buy one yourself. But it is for you putting yourself in those kinds of positions that you'll be able to be somebody that can buy a private jet yourself. You understand? So you have to understand perspective on how you look at the world and how you do it. It's just like a taxi driver, for example. Somebody is buying a car. Somebody wants to get their first car, so that they can flex and people can see them. Another person wants to buy a car. That same car, they give it to somebody as taxi, and they are making money from it. Or they use that car as a pickup truck to be delivering goods from point A to point B, and they are making money from it. But in those two cases, these two people had money to buy a car. One person decided to buy the car and use it for flexing. Another person decided to buy the car and use it for business. So it depends on how you position yourself. It doesn't take money to make a lot of money. It takes initiative. And that is the same thing for you how do you position yourself that you can call the bank and say, I need $1 billion, and they will give it to you. You know, and that is a deeper topic. And that is how the super wealthy do it. They are not using their own money. How do you think banks make money? Banks make money by hoping somebody will call them and say, give me a loan for this. That is the primary way banks make money. But why is it that banks don't want to give you a loan? Because of, number one, what are you collecting the loan for? When you read books like The Richest Man in Babylon, it makes clear something. If you are borrowing money to save, to get yourself out of debt, you know, if someone comes to you as that they are borrowing money because they want to pay school fees, it will be difficult for them to pay it back. If somebody is borrowing money so that because they are hungry or they need to pay their rent, it will be difficult for them to make that money back. As opposed to somebody who is borrowing money to start a business or to take an already existing performing business to another level. It's like, oh, I already have a business that is profitable. I'm doing these numbers, but if I increase and buy more products, I will do even bigger numbers. That is the best place to invest. You understand? So that is how banks think. So how do you put yourself in a position where you can just call the bank and say, I need $1 million. I need $200 million. And the bank says, okay, we'll wire it to your account in 5 minutes. How do you position yourself to be in that position? You position yourself by having a business account, a company account with favorable credit and track record of repaid loans. So you start small. The bank is looking at your company's financial records and seeing the cash flow. This business, this does not work for personal. So if you are in Nigeria and you don't have your own business, you have not started life, you don't know what you are doing, you have killed yourself. As a matter of fact, in many parts of the world, if you do not have your own business, register your own business, start your own business, and let your business represent you and do things for you. Let it own things. As a matter of fact, let things not be in your name. Let things be in your company's name. And also own a non-profit so that this way you are going to pay little taxes and your life will be less complicated. And also you can pass down things to your kids. For example, if something happens to you, all you have to do is this percent of my of this existing business is given to this kid. So your will is very simple. 10% goes to this child, 10% goes to this child, this percent goes to this child, this percent. That is your will. Very simple. Not trying to list out every single thing that you own. The umbrella goes here. This business that I own at this market junction at this one. The other business at this other one goes to this person. The other business at this junction goes here. Not. Look at Dangote. Dangote has, and this is something that I should pay attention to. Dangote has a private. There is the Dangote Group Limited. It is not on the the Dangote Limited that is owned by family members. It's not on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It is not on the London Stock Exchange. It is private. It is owned by only his family members own shares in it. Then that private company, which is a limited liability company, which means that the owners, the shareholders are protected from any liability. So it's a shield and a protection. Now it's private. They own the majority of the shares in the publicly traded companies. For example, Dangote Cement, over 70% of Dangote Cement PLC is owned by Dangote Limited, which is owned by only his family members have shares in. You see, so when Nigerians are buying shares into Dangote Cement, you will never be richer than Dangote, because he and his family own 70% of Dangote Cement, and he is not for sale. But he can buy outside of that 70% and sometimes sell to manipulate the market, and that is legal and that is allowed. So when you yourself structure your life in this way, you don't have to become Dangote today, but you can plan so that your grandchild or your great-grandchild will become Dangote tomorrow. Let me say that again. You yourself don't have to be Dangote today, but you can create a plan to set your dynasty on a plan where your grandchild or your great-grandchild will be the Dangote of tomorrow. By making wiser and better business choices, structure your business for the Nigerian market. the way you have seen all these other people structure them, the way that you have seen the Dangote structure them. You know, so have your own private company that owns everything, that puts everything, your business, everything, your cars, everything under a private company name that is yours. Have a charity foundation that is going to also own things so that you will not pay certain taxes, and this will help you internationally. So you can bypass taxes. Then have your publicly traded company that people can buy shares in. Then your private company, even your charity, owns shares in that, because charities are allowed to own shares. People don't know that churches are allowed to own shares, and this is why some churches are big and some churches will forever be small and struggle. Churches have access to buy shares in hedge funds and in companies. The Catholic Church owns a lot of shares in the Microsofts, the Nvidia, and all the big major companies. And when you look at like the biggest churches, the truth is that they own shares in a lot of companies, and that is how they are funded. They are, for example, the Church of Latter-day Saints. You know, I don't particularly see them as Christian because they have their own version of the Bible. You know, they created their own stuff and added to the Bible, and the Bible makes it clear that I should not add or subtract. But in any case, those people, that's Church of Latter-day Saints, they own hotels. There's a hotel chain that they own that everybody knows they own. But there's the structure of owning you a church or a charity. But you buy shares in companies that nobody knows you own. And that is very important. And it is legal. Especially hedge funds. Buy shares into hedge funds. Because now you are receiving donations. You are receiving, that is an unending stream of untaxed income. So now you carry that income and you use part of it to meet the needs that people are giving donations for. But for the structure, you put aside some rather than putting money in the bank, because when you give to church, the church will keep the money in the bank. Rather than keeping it in a bank account where the money is not accruing interest and growing, keep it in a hedge fund or an investment where it's accruing interest and growing. And then you have a base to fund future things in days where people are not giving as much or when the congregation is not donating as much. So that is one difference between successful churches and churches that are not successful. You know, there is the business structure of everything, because everything in life, you know, is an organization. You know, look at Bill Gates. Where is Bill Gates now? He's no longer at the helm of Microsoft, but they sell all his shares in Microsoft. No, he shifted it to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So it's a non-profit foundation that is more powerful than Microsoft. Majority of the shares of Microsoft is owned by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That is not taxable. So this is a business move. So you have to own your private company, you have to own your own charity, and then for business. And then you also have to own your public company, your publicly traded companies that everybody can buy and then appreciate the price. Then your private company and your charity own the majority shares in your publicly traded company. And you register your company so that it can be publicly traded in London, in the New York Stock Exchange, in Nigeria, South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, in the Chinese Stock Exchange in China, and then perhaps, you know, places like Russia and, you know, Malaysia and so on. So make sure that your company is registered on the stock exchanges in those places, and then you look at market shares. So that's what you do with your public company. So when you do this, your own trajectory, your finances, and your children and your children's children, their trajectory of finances is different. And all of this can be quickly and arranged properly from Nigeria. So Nigeria is a great place to be if you have a lot of money. You know, there are a lot of things. And like I said, you know, it goes back to what I said. Why the super rich are not affected. They can travel in and out of Nigeria at any time. To them, a plane ticket is like a bus ticket. You know, when the cash coming into your bank accounts and into what you can spend is millions upon millions. And especially with certain kinds of accounts today, there are certain accounts that and ways of living where you are not living from yourself. For example, if you are a certain kind of influencer, somebody like for example like a Kanye West or a Kim Kardashian, they are brand influencers. So people look at them and copy them. So when you see all these celebrities wearing Gucci and Dolce and Gabbana and Prada and all of that, when you see the Paris Hiltons and all these people, when they are wearing designer clothing, they don't buy it. So the real flex that people don't know, it's just like somebody said that the new first class is to have your own private plane. There's no such thing as I'm flying first class. If you buy a first class ticket, good for you. But the true first class now is to own your own private plane or to fly private. Of course, the highest is owning your own private plane, but above that, you are using a private plane charter service. So it is just a charter service for those who fly private. It is just you, but you pay for it. You don't own the plane, but you pay for it, like 50K for something that if you had bought a ticket would have been $200. Now you're spending $50,000 on just one trip. So there's that. There's also the situation, and this is something that people don't know. If you buy a private plane, you can lease it out. There are companies that will actually be in charge of leasing out. Just the same way also, there are companies, when you see something like British Airways, Nigerian Airways, all these companies and all these airlines, most of them do not own all their planes. Even though it is painted their colors, they can lease it for like a year from a company that owns the plane. And that is a commercial plane. A company that bought a plane of 500 passengers, that capacity. Then they lease it out to an airline operator, a Spirit or whatever. And then they say, you are going to give us this amount. It is the same thing as somebody who buys a car and gives it to somebody to be driving it and be doing taxi for them. This is something that is done in the airplane world. You can buy airplanes and lease it out. At the end of the day, you give me this, and then that airline is, when they use it, they get the money from whatever, from the services and all from the customer, and then they pay the company that owns the plane their costs. So there is the money making aspect of owning your private plane. You can lease private planes to companies that provide services for private travelers, private plane travelers. So even though they don't own the plane, but they are willing to pay the 50K, the 100K for just the one trip, and to fly alone with them and their family or whatever. So there's that world. So you have to know how to structure things where you are making a lot of money, where money is coming. There's a lot of money in this world. You just have to position yourself correctly. And that is basically what you have to do in Nigeria and in no matter where you are. It's possible, and then you learn and you live a different life, a higher life than others. Where other people are sinking and are being buried in financial debt and in problem, you are in the same country with them, but you are enjoying your life. So that is something you need to think about and structure your life in that manner. So I'll round it up. So it all goes back to, I started this broadcast, this live by talking about Buhari Is Dead, and it has veered into other things, but I was talking about how certain people are not living the same life, all the Boko Haram that Buhari supported, because Buhari, and for those of you who do not know the business aspects of Boko Haram, the Boko Haram and the terrorism in Nigeria is a land grab. Understand something about Nigeria that a lot of people don't know. Nigeria is rich. Nigeria is rich in resources. Africa is the wealthiest place in the world when it comes to natural resources. And true wealth is natural resources, not paper. Dollars is not real money. Real money is natural resources. Real money is gold. Real money is oil. Real money is food, crops, fertile land, that when you grow something, it grows. You know, so Nigeria is rich, and the north, we have always thought it was dry. You know, we were told it was dry, but the reality is that there's a lot of oil in the north. There's also gold there. There's also the cobalt that is used for solar batteries. It's in the north. The material that is used for making steel is in the north. In abundance. Look at all the materials that Dangote has been using to make cement. It's in the north. The billions upon billions of unlimited cement that Dangote has been making ever since is from resources that have been mined in the north. All of that is from northern Nigeria, and it has not finished, and it's not going to finish. So the purpose of Boko Haram is to chase people out of those lands, so that single operators, politicians, and certain groups can buy all that land with all those resources under it. That is why the Boko Haram thing is not going to stop. Because it is business. Now, from the perspective of the people who joined the Boko Haram, because the reality of the matter is that why soldiers fight and why they are sent to battle is two different things. The soldier may be fighting for his country, but the reason he was sent into battle is not to help his country. The reason he was sent into battle was to help the president or the king get richer. He may not know it, but that is the real reason. In the same way, to the Boko Haram fighter, he's fighting for the, he hates this other tribe. Oh, he hates Christians. Oh, he wants to kill all Christians. Oh, he must Islamize Nigeria, whatever. So that is his own thing. And, his tribal beef, that is his thing. But the real people that are sponsoring and enabling and are making sure that Boko Haram members are continually forgiven, those people are doing it for the money. It's a land grab. When people are running away from this lands and running away, all these people displaced, they will never return to their land. The land ownership legally changes to who? Who is now the majority landowner for that land? That is a lot of space. When you go to the north, there's a lot of land. And under that land is a lot of resources. That is billions upon billions of dollars. And certain people know that. So before a day comes when people are allowed to mine, or people who own land, when the land they owned, oil is found or whatever mineral resources found and is mined, the people are compensated on a continual basis or a one-time basis. Before that day comes, there are groups that are trying to, let me get all this land for myself. So that is the business behind Boko Haram, and that is why it is still going strong, and that's why probably it's never going to stop. So that being said, we need to pray and we need to ask God for what instructions, what direction we need to go, and go in that direction to change things. But people like Buhari, life is what it is. Nobody is in a position where they are bigger than God. Buhari is dead, and you saw what happened with Wike on the plane. Where he was praying. This is somebody that doesn't care about people. He doesn't mind stealing from people. Everybody's going to face God at one point. So it is what it is. I would say this, for those of us who are here, we need to pray and plan. Prayer without action is dead. Faith without works is dead. So we need to listen to God for instructions and follow on how to make Nigeria better. And personally, I've talked about what we can do personally to structure our own lives to make money and to advance. So you can make a lot of money in Nigeria. A lizard in Nigeria is not going to become a crocodile abroad. If you travel abroad, you will not automatically become great if you don't have what it takes here. Of course, environment matters, but don't be so deceived that you think that in your own case it is all about environment. If you plant a rose on fertile ground, if you plant a flower seed or a crop on fertile ground, it's going to perform differently from if it was planted on bad soil. But if you plant bad seed both on good ground and on bad ground, it still is not going to perform. So the problem is from the seed itself. So in your own case, you have to know, you have to build yourself. So it is not just you shouldn't just think that it's a matter of you going abroad. A lot of people, this is why a lot of people go abroad and they don't succeed and they fail. Because it's not just environment alone. What about you? There's what you bring to the table. What kind of person are you? If you can hustle in Nigeria and turn a kiosk into a supermarket, if you go abroad, then you will hustle and you will do even much greater things. Rather than somebody who in Nigeria, they could not even start a kiosk successfully. They could not do anything in Nigeria successfully. Then they think that when they go abroad, they'll be successful. No. So that is the thing. That being said, I'll end the live here. I've talked a lot, it is what it is. Thank you. God bless you. See you next time.
Say this prayer audibly if you have not given your heart to Jesus Christ. Dear God, I believe in my heart that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came, died, and was raised from the dead to save me. I confess Him, Lord, over my life and ask you to give me your Holy Spirit to live within me. I receive your Spirit by faith and thank you for I am now born again. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just prayed that prayer, congratulations, you're now a Christian. Go to alfred.vip and get resources that will help you with your work with God.